All right, welcome everyone. My name is Nick Board, and I am a supervisor for marketing and communications with Student Auxiliary Services. We are excited to have you all here on our town hall today as we discuss some of the changes and what housing is going to look like for the fall. We have a panel of senior leaders from Housing and Residential Life, and we'll get started first with Mr. Tim Michael. Tim is the Associate Vice President for Student Auxiliary Services and the Chief Housing Officer. He's been at Wayne State for 12 years, working with student services such as dining, the bookstore, student center, campus meeting and events, and other student success initiatives throughout the Provost Division. And Tim?
Thanks, Nick, and hello, everyone. This town hall is one of a series of communications we will be providing over the next several weeks to keep our campus community informed about plans for students to return to living on campus this fall. We know that the virus is still with us after COVID came to campus in March. All of our housing, dining, and retail planning for the past several weeks has been closely coordinated with other groups on campus, planning for a return to safe teaching and learning, research, and campus operations. WSU is fortunate to be led by our president, Roy Wilson, who is a physician and an epidemiologist. President Wilson has set out guiding principles for our return to campus this fall, and I want to mention two as we get started. The first and our top priority is safety. Safety will always be first, and we will continue to be governed by sensible safety precautions and direction from state and health authorities. In addition to Dr. Wilson, WSU is also fortunate to have a nationally recognized panel of experts on infectious disease control from our School of Medicine, our School of Nursing, the Detroit Medical Center, and the Henry Ford Hospital System advising us. Our comprehensive mitigation strategy being developed for all facets of campus operations is based on the latest science and recommendations from the Centers for Disease Control and the American College Health Association. Our second guiding principle is to continue the academic mission of the university. Teaching, learning, and research will, where prudent and possible, shift back to formal operations while incorporating a new normal to mitigate the spread of the virus. We may need to change the way we operate in some cases, but we will not compromise the quality of our education and research. So we take those guiding principles into all of our planning. Wayne State does not have a housing requirement, and our mission has been to provide a space on campus for any student who wants one. That has not changed for this fall, as we incorporate a strategy to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. As you hear about those changes during this webinar, our goal is for you to be fully informed about what to expect, so that each parent and each student can make a personal and informed decision together on whether to live on campus and how to engage with the campus community this fall. We want you to understand what WSU is doing to help you be safe and feel safe on campus. We want you to understand our expectations and what part you will play in creating that safe environment. And we want you to make any decision to live on campus in the fall in consideration of your personal health circumstances. Wayne State Housing is currently open, and we will remain open during the fall semester. For many of our residents, WSU Housing is their home, and we have remained open to support those residents and all who choose to live with us. No one can predict what may change to impact the fall semester, but today we believe we will be open, and we will stay open per our normal schedule between the start of the fall semester in August and the end of winter semester in April. We are fortunate that Chatsworth Suites will reopen this fall after 1 year of renovation. That will add another 350 beds to our housing capacity. With these additional beds, we believe we will have excess capacity beyond the anticipated demand, and will be able to spread those excess bed spaces across all of our housing facilities to reduce occupancy where needed in support of physical distancing, which is one of our mitigation strategies. I'll stop here and turn this back to Nick to introduce our next speaker.
Thanks, Tim. Before we continue, I just want to let everyone know that we are monitoring the chat. And so if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat and hopefully we'll get it answered as we go on. Up next, we have Dr. Kelly Thacker. Kelly is the Director of Housing and Dining Services and oversees the Housing Business Office, contracts, assignments, marketing, and billing. Kelly has been at Wayne State for 3 years.
Thanks so much, Nick. I want to share with you some of the different things that we are doing in order to help with those priorities that Tim talked about. And as Tim mentioned, housing is open and we will continue to remain open. And our housing application process is open and available. So for any of you who have not yet applied, you can certainly go online and do that. And we will continue to accept those applications. One of the changes that we did make in the last few weeks is that we have suspended the room self-selection and room change process. We suspended that as of June 4th. But not to worry, we still are accepting students' housing preferences, which are a part of the housing application. And from this point forward, we will be utilizing those as we work to make assignments. So all room assignments are going to be made by my team behind the scenes, utilizing the information that students supply in the housing application. In addition, we are offering a lot of virtual opportunities for students and their families to still engage with us. One of those is that we are now offering virtual tours, and students can go online and schedule one of those tours and be walked through a residence hall or apartment space by one of our team members. So we're really excited to be able to offer that. We just opened it up this week and have had lots of requests for those virtual tours. We are also continuing to provide additional information on our housing website, housing.wayne.edu. We already have posted floor plans and pictures of a variety of our different spaces, but we're looking to add by the end of this week virtual room tours. So at any point in time, you and your families can go online and take a look around in those rooms. Even if you're not able to sign up for one of the virtual tours, you can still go online and take a look at one of those online videos. If you decide that living on campus is for you, you can go online and complete that application. Part of that application is you signing the housing license agreement. That housing license agreement is for the entire academic year, both the fall and winter semesters. And in order to have a complete application on file, you make a $125 non-refundable housing application fee payment. One of the other changes we've made is to extend our no penalty cancellation date. Previously, it was June 30th, and we have now extended that until July 20th. We're aware that a lot of faculty are still making decisions about how the courses are going to be delivered, which may impact someone's decision to live on campus with us. So we've extended that no penalty cancellation date until July 20th. And if a student would want to cancel their housing application, they can go online through the Housing Self-Service portal and complete that cancellation request. If someone does request to cancel for the fall, they can reapply for the fall semester if they decide to change their minds related to the classes and courses that are being offered. Or if they want to apply for winter 2021, they can do so without needing to pay the $125 application fee payment again. If that's something that you're interested in doing, you can email housing@wayne.edu and one of my team will assist you in that process. Another mitigation strategy that we're working on with our housing assignments is working to de-densify our buildings. And what that means is really looking to spread people out across floors and communities throughout all of campus. And as Tim mentioned, we do really believe that the success of fall housing is dependent upon each person following guidance and instruction set out for the mitigation strategies. You'll hear a little bit more about that from my colleagues here in a few minutes. So as we look at de-densifying the buildings, we have taken all of our triple rooms in Atchison and Ghaffari, and we've converted those rooms to double rooms to ensure proper physical distancing among the roommates. For all of our other locations and buildings, the room occupancy will remain the same. And as Tim mentioned, we are really excited to be offering Chatsworth Suites for this upcoming fall. It's a completely renovated building, and we offer 4- and 6-person suites. So the 6-person suites are something that we don't offer in any of our other locations in our residence halls. So in addition to reducing the triple rooms, we're also adjusting our floor and community designations to spread students out. We are working very closely with our various partners from across campus, including our living learning community colleagues, to work to make assignments and to look at the floor plans and figure out where to assign students to allow the most physical distancing on that floor or within that community. All of the living learning communities will be open this fall and are accepting applications, which is a great opportunity for anybody who might be interested in participating in one of those communities. As I mentioned, we are working to manually assign students, and so as we make assignments, we'll be notifying you via your Wayne State email account. If you have a concern about your room assignment or have a question about the room or anything at all, please feel free to contact us and we will work with you one-on-one to try and resolve any issue or concern or answer any question that you may have. So you can always email us at housing.wayne or housing@wayne.edu. Or also you can live chat us. We have staff that are available Mondays through Fridays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. that are live chatting during those periods and can answer your questions right there in the moment. So we have a variety of different ways that you can contact us, and our staff work to respond within the same business day to questions and concerns that students and families may have. The last thing I want to mention about room assignments is to talk a little bit about our room change process. So although we don't have that open right now, we do plan on offering a room change process later in the summer. And if additional single rooms become available, they'll become available during this room change process that we offer later in the summer. So we'll continue to update students who have a complete housing application on file with us through their Wayne State email account. So please continue to be monitoring that as we provide updates about the housing assignment processes. I'll throw it back to Nick.
Thanks, Kelly. Next, we have Nicky Dunham, who's the Director of Residence Life. She oversees residence education, working with our hall directors and resident assistants, as well as our front desk staff.
Hi there. Thanks for coming, everybody. So as Nick mentioned, I, along with the Residence Life team, have the responsibility for what student life while living on campus looks and feels like. We've been discussing a lot of the factors that we know residents look for when choosing to live on campus related to safety, events and community building, roommate relationships, and student support. It's worth mentioning that student life in our residential buildings will be different in a lot of ways this fall. Life while living on campus starts with MoveIn, as many of you know already, which is something that we're sure you have a lot of questions about. So prior to MoveIn, there will be some pieces of resident orientation that will be required for all residents. That'll include a safety course, which is based on COVID-19 mitigation strategies and what your personal responsibility will be. And that's being developed in conjunction with the Health Policy Committee. You also might complete some trainings about sexual misconduct, expectations for living in a community and with a roommate, financial literacy, and other important topics. MoveIn itself will also look and feel a little bit different this year than it has in years past. We've extended MoveIn to be a week-long process to allow for maximum physical distancing and a smooth and safe experience for everybody. Residents will need to sign up for a move-in time sometime during the week of August 23rd. The Health Policy Committee has recommended testing for all residential students, and the details of that are still being ironed out. We're still planning to have help for physically moving into your room or apartment with the Warrior Welcome Crew, and there will be activities, both virtual and in person, throughout that whole week. You'll be receiving much, much more information about the logistics of move-in in July. So once you're moved in and the academic year is underway, your new normal routine will also be very different, both in and out of your residential building. When you get up in the morning, you may fill out a daily symptom screener so the campus health center can know if they need to provide you additional health services or resources. A face covering will be required once you leave your private living space as well, so don't forget to bring it with you. You might need to allow some extra time when moving around the building as well, as we're recommending that only 2 people may be in an elevator at a time. And as some of you already know, a lot of our hallways can be very narrow, so you might choose to take a different route to get to a lounge or to exit a building. You'll see a lot of additional signage around our buildings when you get to campus as well, and in your building. And that'll serve as a reminder to how to keep yourself and your neighbors safe. Part of living in a community is also having a roommate. So it'll be extremely important to be in contact with your roommate as soon as possible. We'll be sending roommate agreements out to residents through email sometime before move-in, and we're hoping that that will help guide a conversation about cleaning and health precautions that you'll take while living together. Don't forget that you'll also have a peer resident advisor available to help you with any issues or conflicts that may arise, and we'll be providing extra training to all of our staff so that they can help you with those situations and to make sure that everyone who's living around you will be warrior safe and warrior strong. So we, of course, know that the experience of living on campus is an important part of a student's journey throughout college. We're working to build community in new ways, both virtually and with physical distance, as is the entire campus. There are many overlaps in planning committees and groups that are happening between campus housing and the university as a whole. There's a lot of adaptation and creativity happening to make sure that we provide a well-rounded student experience, but also meet all of the recommended COVID-19 mitigation strategies. This may seem like a lot of changes, and to be honest, it will be, but it's important to keep in mind that everyone living in our communities on campus has a personal responsibility to help mitigate the spread of COVID-19. And we will have plenty of staff, both full-time professional and student, to help you navigate this and also support you through the academic year. We're really excited to see you in August. Back to Nick.
Thanks, Nikki. Next, we have Dr. Brian Fitzgerald, who's a Senior Associate Director for Housing Facilities. Brian works closely with our staff who manage and maintain our building facilities, including daily cleaning, maintenance, project planning, and more. Brian?
Thanks, Nick. Again, everyone, good afternoon. My name is Brian Fitzgerald, as Nick said. I do a lot with facilities on campus, and outside of the items that Nick mentioned, I also chair our Student Auxiliary Services Facility and Operations Subcommittee, which is comprised of stakeholders who manage the various services that are offered to students on campus. Like everyone that has spoken before, we're governed by the American College Health Association and CDC guidance, and we keep an eye on the governor's executive orders in the state of Michigan to find out what we can and cannot do. First, I want to say that mitigating the effects posed by COVID-19 is a shared responsibility. We all take part in it, including you. I think what I always want to say first is wash your hands. Frequent washing of your hands with soap and warm water is one of the most effective ways for you to help us and to help yourself mitigate COVID-19. Hand sanitizer will be made at all service counters for residents to use. This includes our hall desks and our check-in stations at the dining units. High-touch cleaning protocols are in place, and they're in place right now in all of our facilities. This means that entry door handles, elevator buttons, and counter surfaces will be cleaned once an hour. We are also exploring the use of disinfecting film to be placed on door handles and elevator buttons, and we will always use CDC-approved disinfectants. Public restrooms will be cleaned and sanitized once a day. These are located generally on the main floor of all of our buildings. The Thompson is our only facility with several single-user bathrooms per floor. These facilities will be cleaned and sanitized once a day as well, and housekeeping will be equipped with additional sanitary wipes for your use before and after you enter one of these rooms. Common area lounges will be addressed once a day, but we are asking residents not to store any food in the refrigerators that are available, and please leave all of your cooking utensils, including plates, in your room. When fitness rooms are allowed to open by the governor, we can safely open with physical distancing in place. These too will be cleaned once a day and sanitized. We will offer sanitizing wipes in these spaces, but residents should be prepared to bring their own products to wipe down any surfaces before and after use. The Mort Harris Recreational Center will follow similar practices, and they will be limiting the amount of people that can enter the building at any one time. Plexiglass shields will also be up at the customer-facing counters. This includes hall desks and the check-in stations at the dining units. And we'll also have distance signage to help manage lines wherever lines would form. All housing and dining staff traveling or working in common spaces, including me and the rest of the facility staff, will be wearing masks as long as they are in public areas and not personal offices. So that is kind of my recap. Hopefully it was clear, and I'll turn it back to Nick.
Thanks, Brian. Now we're going to open it up to questions that were submitted as well as questions coming into the chat. First, I think this one's probably best for you, Kelly. How will dining be different, and can we expect service lines, buffets, salad bars, or will it mostly be students just taking food back to our rooms?
Sure, that's a great question, Nick. We will have some changes in dining for the fall, and so I'll share a few of those with you all. The first one that I'm really excited about is that we have listened to some student feedback, and we are offering new meal plans for this upcoming academic year. So for students who are living in meal plan required locations, they can actually go online right now and select from these new meal plans. And we have been working to inform you, if you've already applied and selected one of our old plans, how you can go online and do that right now. For those students who are living in meal plan optional locations, they can go online and also purchase a meal plan, but it will be through a different website this fall, the Campus Dish website. And students can select from the preset meal plans, or they can create their own meal plan, combining blocks and Warrior Dollars. So that is really exciting. That was some of the feedback we've received from students over the past few years, and we've worked with our campus partner Aramark to offer those. So that's a big change in dining this fall. In addition, the dining services is working closely with the Michigan OSHA and CDC recommendations for dining operations that have been set forth. So they are working to modify the food delivery for this fall in accordance with those guidelines and recommendations. We are going to be restricting self-service stations, and so when students go in to get their food, they'll go to one location to get all of the meal items. Instead of going to the dessert bar and the salad bar, they'll be able to get all of their items at one location. And most of those items, if not all of those items, will already be plated for students, so that they will not be serving themselves. We are reducing capacity in Towers Cafe and within Golden Greens. We will still have spaces for students to sit if they want to eat in the facilities, but they will, those numbers will be reduced. So the capacity overall will be reduced. We are working to streamline our Towers to Go program and reduce any unnecessary contact. So that's a program where if a student wants to take their meal and go someplace else, whether back to their room, sit outside, or take it with them to another location, they can certainly do that. So we're working to streamline that process. In addition, we are also adding a to-go pickup location in the student center. So students don't need to go to Towers Cafe to get their to-go meal. They could actually get that while they're walking to class or while they're walking through the student center. We're also working to add some contactless checkouts in Matt Anthony's General Store, and we're partnering with our other locations that are not Aramark across campus to work on additional risk mitigation strategies. So we're working with their national partners to implement those mitigation strategies as well.
Thanks, Kelly. I think this next question is for you, Nikki, and possibly Tim as well. My student is very eager and excited to return to campus living. However, I know the complete suspension of her ability to bring guests and visitors into her space will be disappointing. Many businesses are using no-contact temperature tests along with self-certification surveys as a way to screen individuals for access. are alternatives to the complete suspension of guests and visitors being explored for implementation? And have students that are scheduled to return to campus housing been used to solicit their input and insight on this? We know some level of socialization is a big part of the campus housing experience.
Yeah, I can start. So as many of you may know, our guest policy is currently suspended and has been since spring break as a mitigation strategy. It was one of the first things that we did when the state started to shut down and when Wayne State decided to move all classes for the remainder of the winter semester online. And it was very successful. We feel like we were able to really keep our residents safe by doing that. So we're continuing to evaluate the situation and are currently following the CDC and Health Policy Committee guidance about allowing visitors in the building. Currently, it's not recommended by those medical advisors, which is why it's still in place. So certainly you'll be able to have residents from within your building visiting your room, but you'll want to make sure to include that in the discussion that you have with your roommate and be as safe as possible. So we'll be sure to update residents if and as soon as we decide to go in a different direction. Certainly, I've received a few messages from students that are concerned about this as well and have taken their input. And we're always thinking about other alternatives.
All right. And then this question came in on the chat roll. You mentioned that tests would be required for all residents. The website says it's for people signing in or moving in. Does this apply to existing residents? Could this please be clarified?
Sure, I can take that, Nick. So the hope is this summer, so we have about 500 people living on campus with us right now, and we will be asking them to participate in a testing program so that they can also be evaluated before the start of the fall semester. And then all new residents that join us in the fall will also participate in those initial tests. Thereafter, at the university, we're likely to be doing random testing, a group of so many hundred every 3 to 6 weeks, just to understand if the virus is present and how it's being spread in the population. And so, yes, current residents will be asked to participate in testing. The testing is at no cost to the residents. And more information will be coming out to our summer residents about that.
Thanks, Tim. Brian, this one is for you, I believe. When will the UT fitness facilities be open, as well as will towers be open, and what will take for that to happen?
Well, it would take, under the executive orders of the governor, right now we can't open a fitness room or a gymnasium. So when that comes through, we will examine it. It won't be immediate because we'll have to put in place how we're going to create the physical distance. And we'll also be chatting with the staff at Mort Harris on what they're doing. This just tends to be a high contact environment, but I can almost guarantee when they are open, again, there will be a limited amount of people allowed in these facilities. And then we will provide, as I said earlier, some disinfectant, but we'll also recommend that students bring their own, a towel and probably wipes and hand sanitizer. We just don't have a good date yet.
Thank you. Kelly, there are a lot of questions in the chat roll right now wanting to know if they participated in self-selection in June, if their assignment is still good, or if they'll be assigned a new space.
Sure, that's a great question. And at this point, if you picked your room, that is your room. So that is your space for the fall. If we need to move you for any reason, we will contact you. I mentioned that we reduced the occupancy in our triple rooms to doubles. And so we did individually contact all of those students that affected. And then we worked with them one-on-one to figure out what would best meet their needs. So if you don't want to make a change and you already have your room, that is your room for the fall.
Great. Another question that came in was wanting to know if, with all the changes we're making to keep people safe, if it's going to impact the housing rates for the next school year.
So I'll take that question. Our housing rates for the fall and the winter were set in February before COVID came to campus, but those are the rates we are charging for the year. We don't have any desire or anticipate raising rates beyond what is published on our website.
All right. And then, Brian, I think this question is best for you. Is there anything being done to make the front doors of buildings contactless or making that surface safer?
With the front doors of a building, you really can't make them contactless because you have to swipe to get in. And we want to keep that security function. But I'm hoping that we can get what's called nanoseptic, which is a film that will go over the front doors, and it's light activated, and it is good for 30 to 60 days. So when you pull the door open, immediately it'll be disinfected. But in some interior doors, we may be able to do some things, but the external doors, no, we do have to maintain the card access, and residents will have to swipe in.
Thank you. And then, Nikki, how will you be prioritizing students' campus life without shutting it down completely so that students can still have a healthy mental status and social life while being safe?
Sure. So we have actually been talking a lot about that in our Restart Committee. We have a small subgroup as part of the Housing, Dining, Retail Restart Committee, and we've been talking about balancing the goals of the residential curriculum with the need to have that physical distancing. So as I mentioned before, we still plan to have events for residents to be in community with one another. I'm working really closely with facilities to determine where furniture should be placed in, a community room, a seminar room, a kitchen, etc. How many residents can safely be in one of those areas at a time, and things of that nature. We've also been talking a lot more about how to utilize our beautiful outdoor space, especially on nice days like today. It's nice to be outside, so you might see a lot more events happening there as well. One of our goals is really that you are all happy, successful, social, and safe. And so we're doing everything possible. There was a mention of mental health in that question as well. And I think it's worth noting that we know that that has become a significant topic during this quarantine period nationally for how people are coping with, being in their homes and not having businesses and such open. So I do just want to mention that the Counseling and Psychological Services, or CAPS, is still a very strong partner of ours. They provide a lot of training for our professional and our student staff, and they will continue to be available if students are feeling like they're in crisis related to, how different campus might feel for them. And I will add too that the same considerations are being talked about on a campus-wide scale. So there is a committee that is meeting together that includes a lot of folks from a lot of different offices that are talking about how to engage residents. So you all are definitely on our mind in that way.
Thanks, Nikki. I'm going to leave this one to the group, so whoever feels best to answer it. Is there a COVID segregation area on campus if someone is identified or test positive? Can you please explain that process, given that the student's temperature might be tested each morning as part of a questionnaire?
So I'll start, and then Kelly can jump in because she's our coordinator for a lot of this. We have set aside spaces in every facility that are at the ends of hallways or on separate floors where students who may be presumptively positive or have been exposed to someone who tests positive can be quarantined for the recommended number of days to see if they develop the disease. If we have active infection on campus, if a student is sick and is unable to leave campus, we also have quarantine rooms where we provide additional support. There's daily monitoring with our health professionals on campus through the campus health center. And we coordinate very closely to make sure that we meet the students' needs while they're in those isolating spaces. The students' main responsibility in those quarantine and isolation rooms is to stay in those spaces and remain in quarantine so that they don't inadvertently infect others. Kelly, other things you want to add?
Sure. Just to highlight two of the things that you already mentioned, Tim. One is that we do work extremely closely with our campus health center staff. And so for those students who might move into those isolation spaces, they will be working with those students on a daily basis and then connecting back with our housing staff. So we will be able to know and support those students if they were to need anything. One of the other things, as Tim mentioned, we're working to support the students that we have partnered with our dining services on is actually providing meals to those students who are in isolation. And so we will work to get meals delivered to their doors. So again, those students do not need to leave at any point in time. And so we will have those meals delivered right to their door. And if there's any dietary needs or concerns, or the student is wanting something different because of how they're feeling as related to the illness, then we will work to provide that as well. But we are in constant communication with the health center and then also our other partners across campus to support those students throughout that period.
All right. We've talked a lot about quite a few of the precautions we're taking to help keep residents warriors safe. If things start to improve with the pandemic, like a vaccine is created or there's a cure found, will any of these precautions change, or will these precautions remain the same for the fall and winter semesters?
So maybe I can start that one as well, and then I'll hand it off to some others. There was a question that was submitted about here in Michigan, our governor has mostly lifted the emergency orders that sent many of us to our homes. And if that happened, those orders have been lifted, why then are we doing all these other things? And the mitigation strategies we've been talking with you about today are really the reason why we can lift those orders that the governor has done. Because the virus is still here, it lives with us every day, and we have to find a new normal, a way to live with the virus. And so all the mitigation strategies that are in place are to help reduce the spread and the infection of the virus while we get back to trying to live our lives in some new normal way. Certainly, if a vaccine becomes available and becomes widely used by students on campus, by the campus population, we would then have the ability to adapt any of our remaining restrictions to that new reality. One of the things you're going to find is that even between now and fall semester, the science around the virus itself and mitigation will continue to evolve. And so the mitigation strategies we're talking to you about today are those best practices as recommended based on the science today. If those things change for the better or the worse, we will continue to evolve our expectations and our strategies with them. So it would be great, and we're all hoping for a vaccine which will allow us to go back to maybe what we knew before, but we just don't think that's going to happen before the fall semester starts. And so once we get into the semester, we will continue to be guided by the best practices and the recommendations from the CDC and the American College Health Association.
I would add on that too. If tomorrow there was a vaccine and we could prove that everyone on campus got it, we would still keep a lot of our facility safeguards in place until we could make sure, including the masks and all of those cleaning protocols. But as Tim said, we don't know if a vaccine will be developed anytime soon, but there could be a lag from when if a vaccine is announced to when we start relaxing some of the requirements. And I hope that makes sense to everyone.
All right. Kelly, you had mentioned when you spoke earlier that the cancellation deadline had been extended until July 20th. Will students know how many roommates they will have before that date? And if not, what is the penalty after July 20th if you cancel?
Certainly. So related to the roommate question, students are able to go online at any point in time into their housing self-service portal and review roommate assignments. So as students are deciding to cancel or as students are deciding to apply, then we are going to be making those assignments behind the scenes and then notifying those new applicants of their assignment. So my encouragement would be for, if you have an assignment, to continue to go on your self-service portal, get in the habit of doing that and taking a look at your your roommates that have been assigned, and then working to reach out to them. And as Nikki said, starting those conversations about, you know, the behavior within the room and expectations that you may have of each other. So that's one thing that students can do. Again, that will continue to change. So, it is possible that a student would, cancel on July 19th, and you might lose a roommate, or someone might apply and you might gain a roommate, because that is a very fluid process. So that will continue to change. So it is possible that someone could get assigned a roommate after that July 20th extended cancellation date. If a student wants to cancel after that date, then we utilize the cancellation terms and the cancellation reasons within the housing license agreement to determine if that cancellation request will be approved or denied. And so after that July 20th date, there may be additional financial responsibilities that the student will have, or they might be denied the cancellation request. But we provide that information to those individuals after that cancellation request is submitted. And then they do have the opportunity to, if they get denied, to meet with the appeals committee. But after the July 20th date, we will utilize the cancellation terms within the housing license agreement.
Thanks, Kelly. Nikki, I think this one would be a good one for you. There was a question in the chat roll wanting to know how jobs on campus will be affected, namely the front desks at all the residence halls.
Sure, good question. Excited that you are looking to come and work with us. So we still have all of our desks are fully staffed right now. We have safety precautions in place at our desks, which Brian mentioned before. So there's plexiglass up everywhere. The desk attendants are all required to wear masks. We are trying very hard not to share things like pens and pencils, scissors, etc. That somebody might need to complete a process, or they're just looking to borrow from the desk. And the desk attendants are also responsible for a few different cleaning procedures on campus. And this is another one of those mitigation strategies that we started when spring break was extended. So desk attendants during their shift and at the end of their shift are responsible for wiping down everything in the desk area and making sure that they are wearing gloves while doing so and are wearing their mask as well. So there's a lot of cleaning that's happening for that group specifically. We also have a number of resident advisors that work on campus too. As I mentioned, they'll be receiving additional training about mitigation strategies and how they support residents through that, but also keep themselves safe, because oftentimes they do have to have one-on-one conversations with our residents, whether that's about a policy or procedure that wasn't followed, whether it's about their experience living on campus or what have you. So we're doing a lot of work to make sure that we can keep them safe as well. All of our positions we are planning to have active and filled in the fall. We still need desk assistants. That process is actually starting in a couple of weeks if you submitted an application already. We also hold a number of positions at our front desks for first-year students so that they have employment opportunities as well.
Thanks. Tim, there are a lot of questions and comments coming in the chat roll wanting to know if there's a date that we're using as a guidance for when classes will be determined, if they're online or in person, as there's a lot of anxiety of wanting to know that before they commit. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So one of our restart groups on campus is the academic restart group. It's chaired by our provost, and he's working closely with the faculty senate and deans of the colleges to determine how every course on campus will be the form of instruction for fall. Our goal as a campus community is for all members of our community to be safe, students, faculty, and staff. And so our expectations for how we interact with each other really apply to all of us. And as you watch registration and the registration website, you'll see almost daily changes where courses are moving, are being designated through the codes available on the site, whether they're going to be in person, remote, online, and if they're meeting at synchronous or asynchronous. All of that just to say that those decisions are being made every day, and so you should keep checking back on your schedule. The provost and the president have asked that all those decisions be done and in place by July 15th. That is why we moved the housing cancellation deadline till after the July 15th, so that you would have time to understand fully what your class commitments are going to be and how your courses will be delivered to you.
Thanks. Another question coming in off the chat roll is surrounding honors and other LLCs or living learning communities. Are we taking any different precautions within those communities, or are they following similar strategies that we're doing throughout the rest of the buildings?
Yeah, I can start with that. So our academic initiatives coordinator, Katie Turner, has been working really closely with all of our living learning community coordinators and the community directors who are responsible for those areas. They are talking about all of the same things that we're talking about. So how we deliver community building, how we make sure that residents are engaging with one another, but also meeting the goals of the living learning community and engaging with our academic partners in a really meaningful and intentional way. So all of those things are still being talked about. There will still be events that are happening, both in person and virtually. There will also be some ways for all of our LLC residents to engage with their living learning community and the coordinators and their academic partners prior to orientation part 2 starting. So that's an exciting new thing that we're doing this year, and we're really excited to engage with you all in that way. As far as the strategies in the actual communities, like the physical communities, Kelly can touch a little bit more on that, but we're doing the same, sort of de-densifying efforts in our LLCs as well. So we are still accepting applications and are excited if you want to come and live with us, but there may just be less students around in those communities. Kelly, I'm not sure if you wanted to say anything additional about that.
Right, there may be less students, and then we also are looking to strategically place people throughout those floors and within those communities so that there's not large groups of people all living in the same location. So we will be also de-densifying those living learning communities as well, but working very closely with Katie, who's working very closely with all of the LLC partners and coordinators.
All right. There's also been quite a few questions regarding MoveIn, as we've announced that we're extending it to a week-long process and students will have to sign up. Could anyone talk a little bit about how students might sign up and what to expect with that?
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have a small MoveIn committee. It's actually most of us that are on your screen right now that are talking about how to facilitate MoveIn in a really safe and enjoyable way. So at some point in the summer, you'll get an email from Housing and Residential Life explaining how this will all work with all of the nitty-gritty logistical details that you're looking for. It'll work for those of you that lived on campus with us during the winter semester. It'll look very similar to signing up for a move out time. So you'll get an email with all of those instructions, and then we will go from there, and we will make sure that you know exactly how to be safe on campus while you're experiencing move-in. Kelly, I'm not sure if you wanted to say a little bit more about the actual sign-up process.
Sure. We will be utilizing our housing system. So you've heard me mention a couple of times our housing self-service portal. So that is how students signed up for move-out times. And we found that to be really efficient and effective because students could actually change those if something happened and they were delayed or they wanted to move up their move-out time. So we'll be doing something similar for the move-in process. And the only other thing that I want to mention is in addition to having students sign up, we're also looking at a lot of technology strategies for a contact contactless move-in. So things that you may have signed previously in person at a desk, we're going to look to have you do that maybe ahead of time or on your phone or mobile device as you're coming to campus to move in. So it's going to be extremely important that as we prepare for the fall, that you are watching your Wayne State email account. You're checking that on a regular basis, multiple times a day, because we want to ensure that you all are staying informed and are able to do all the things that you need to do to have a very smooth move-in once you get to campus.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would add is that I know there were a lot of questions that were submitted before we went live here about guests being allowed to assist with move-in. I don't think that that's a question that we can for sure answer yet. We're following a lot of the guidelines from the CDC, our health policy committee, to figure out if we were to allow guests for move-in, how that would work, whether or not they would need to be tested as well. Or potentially fill out a screening form. So there's lots of logistics to be worked out there, but I just want to make sure that folks know that we are thinking about that, because we know that that's an extremely important transition time for first-year students and really everybody when they move into their residence hall or apartment building.
I also wanted to offer a connection. If you have already been to orientation or scheduled for orientation, you're probably familiar with the new Warrior app that you're using as part of your orientation day. Most of the pre-work and requirements that you will have to do before you move into campus will be part of that app. You'll be able to access a task list and know exactly what you need to accomplish, and it will provide you with guidance to get where you need to go to take your training or to certify or do other things. The goal through all of that is to get to that end point where you get the magic move-in slip, the okay that lets you then come to campus and move in. And so you'll be using that app a lot more for housing in the fall and then elsewhere on campus as well.
All right. Thank you. We have just a few minutes left for question and answers, and this came in both on the chat roll and in the RSVPs that some medical experts are predicting a possible second wave of COVID-19 in the fall. With that said, will there be flexibility for students to opt out of signed housing contracts if there are health concerns, and will there be penalties assigned?
So I guess I would go back to what I said earlier, and that just as we did in March, we did what we thought was right. We took the best advice we had from our medical experts with the little information we had at that time about the virus. And we tried to do the right thing by encouraging students to leave campus and to provide some credit as we were able. We now know a lot more about the virus. And so this whole hour we've had has been talking about the mitigation strategies. And the other reality, as I said earlier, is that the campus is really home for many students. In addition to folks who kind of live here full time, even students who are living with us for their academic semester often work in the city or work nearby and have jobs that require them to be here on weekends or during breaks. So we will be staying open throughout the fall. There's no way to know, as I said earlier, what will happen in the fall. But what I am confident of is that we'll do the right thing in trying to serve the entire campus community, just as we did in the winter semester.
All right. And then it had been mentioned that face coverings were required throughout housing facilities. Are we expecting students to have to bring their own, or will housing provide some of that, as well as cleaning products to keep their rooms sanitized?
So I can talk to that just because there's a large, Wayne State's already bought 60,000 Wayne State logoed masks that we're distributing to the campus community, students, faculty, and staff. And so you will receive masks from us either before or at check-in, because you are expected to wear them anytime you're not in your personal space. You will be wearing masks as you walk across campus. You will be wearing masks in your classrooms. And so it really is, they're cloth masks that are washable. I think everyone is going to be given 3. You may obviously, as you go through the summer, develop your own choice. There's no requirement that you wear the ones that we'll provide, one that fits more comfortably for you, or one that you have made for yourself, perhaps. So you are expected to wear masks. We will help remind you to wear them, especially early in the semester, and we will have plenty to provide if you forget your mask. But yeah, we really need that to be the new normal. Just like you'll pick up your room key as you're leaving your room at the beginning of your day, you'll make sure you take your mask with you along with your cell phone and your course materials for anywhere you're going. It'll just become part of what we have to do during the time we live with the virus.
All right. Before we wrap up, I have a few announcements that I would like to share. But before I go into that, panelists, are there anything else that you want to make sure everyone knows?
So I would just like to stress again that what we hope you got from this opportunity to kind of chat with us a little bit is that safety is our #1 priority. We're all student affairs professionals, and we like nothing better than to work with students on campus. But we really want you to understand what that might be like for you for the fall, and what the commitment from you will be expected in return. And that your personal health circumstances may not allow you to come to campus in the fall, even though you may want to. So we really want you to make an informed decision about living on campus and interacting on campus in a variety of ways. And so as registration becomes more clear, you'll have options for the courses that you take, and you also have options for how you participate on campus. We welcome your questions. Please write to us during the week. There's live chats. We're answering emails. There are a variety of other webinars that Nick will talk about. And so we just want you to know that your safety is our #1 priority. We welcome you to campus if that's a decision that you've made and you consider all the facts. And we will work with you to the best of our ability to give you, the experience that most Wayne State students really value and enjoy living on campus. So thanks for joining us today, and I'll let Nick wrap it up.
All right. I saw also that many of you in the chat were wondering if we're going to provide more opportunities like this. We have a number of webinars scheduled on over the next few months. And if you go to housing.wayne.edu/events, you'll be able to see the listing. We also are recording this webinar today, as well as the future ones, and they'll be posted on this page as well as on our coronavirus information page. We're constantly updating our coronavirus campus housing information page as we're developing new policies, procedures, and adapting as information comes out. So we hope this was informative. There were over 200 questions submitted with the RSVP, and I know we only got to answer a decent or a small portion of those. And so we're looking to, by the end of the week, also having a commonly asked questions section added to this website. Again, we want to thank you for joining. And if you have any other questions, feel free to always email us at housing@wayne.edu, or utilize our live chat at housing.wayne.edu. Thank you.